Well, today's episode, we're going to be reviewing 5 reviews today. The first one is from Stardom, continuing on with day 7 of the Goddess of Stardom Tag League. We'll find out who is in the lead right now, because right now it's getting very, very interesting. We even got the much recent MLW. As you know, they only had 2 matches, but they're both championship matches, the Women's Featherweight and the World Heavyweight Championship. Then we got New Japan Pro Wrestling, where the junior heavyweight division, the Super Jr.Tag League, takes over. Then we cannot forget AEW Rampage and who levels up on this episode of NXT Level Up. And also, we're going to be talking about what's been going on in the world of pro wrestling. So, get ready for another episode of the Deleted Wrestle Zone.
Are you ready? Get up, get up! 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 Get up, get up!
Welcome everybody to the Deleted Wrestle Zone, all things that's pro wrestling with AEW, NXT, New Japan Pro Wrestling, Impact Wrestling, the National Wrestling Alliance, various promotions, wrestlers, matches, and championships. I am your host, J-Rod here. So, let's begin with Stardom's Goddess of Stardom Tag League, Day 7. This one goes back to Korakuen Hall, I believe, and this one's on the 23rd of November. This is before Showcase. Let's see what happens. We opened up with 2 matches of the Blue Goddess block. First one is Wingori, consistent of Hanan and Saida, facing off the same team of stars, FWC, Koguma, and Ozuki. Now, keep in mind, there are some moments where we got the much senior wrestlers taking on the much young, less experienced wrestlers. But I thought it was a pretty good one, because if you guys know, as I mentioned maybe countless times, Ozuki was the one behind the training of Saida, and I think this is another prime example of student versus teacher, and I think that says it all. But it was, of course, the what was it? The wing face crossface by Ozuki onto Hana that picked up the win. That gives her 2 points. We'll get to the point system in a bit. Now, our next match, we have Mahim, consistent of Himeka and Maika of DDM, taking on 2 online. Miya, Mizuki, and Azumi from Queen's Quest. Now, you probably could guess this one would have fallen in favor of Hime, because they are one of the most dominant groups right now as we speak. So they picked up the win. But recently, have you noticed now, it appears that Maika has a new arsenal in her weapon, and that is the jackknife, which allowed her to pick up some wins that she couldn't possibly imagine. So we'll see how that goes on. Now, our next match is the part of the Red Goddess block. We have Black Desire, Starlight Kid, and Momo Watanabe taking on My Fair Lady, consistent of Lady C and Mai Sakurai. Now, they are currently right now the least members, the least team that doesn't have in points yet. They haven't won a single match just yet. But, however, you probably would have guessed it. It was the B Driver by Momo that sealed the deal for her onto Sakurai, giving her 2 points. Now, we continue on with the next match with the Blue Goddess block. We got 7 Up, you and Nanane Takahashi taking on Waka Wild. Now, Nanane Takahashi was very looking forward to seeing Mina Shirakawa, but due to the fact that she's injured after what happened on Hiroshi Goddess Festival on the 3rd of November, it's not going to happen. But I did appreciate that Waka had the fighting spirit with her, but I felt bad that, she ended up on the last ride by you. Now, there were some moments that Waka seems like she was getting the momentum going, but it was just too much for her with the handle with you when she applied the last right, and boom, 1, 2, 3, it was over. Now we go back to the Red Goddess block. Our first match, we have We Love Tokyo Sports, consisting of Fukigen Dev and Saki Kashima, taking on Meltier, Tam Nakano, and Natsupoi. Now, this was a very interesting matchup because, as you know, Saki Kashima and Tam Nakano do have a bit of a history. But however, as you know, that Meltier just made it on the cover of Weekly Pro magazine, I think. As you know, Saki Kashima always has a thing where she has to be on the spotlight in Tokyo Sports, but apparently she's not in the spotlight as of today. Well, as of that day, but it did not stop Meltier from picking up their win when Natsupoi applied the fairy gift onto Fukigen to pick up the win, but they picked up the magazines and ripped it apart. But there was a moment on the magazine that I remember when Fukigen have Tam Nakano on the camel clutch, but she had the magazine right in her face. Apparently, Tam revealed that Fukigen Def actually put her where the column where they're talking about Mina Shirakawa. So basically, that's what happened. Tam even mentioned that, so it's kind of interesting to see that she's in the magazine. But however, Meltier does pick up the points. Next up, we have Peach Rock, Momo Kogo, and Mayu Iwatani taking on Karate Brave, Tomoka Inaba, and Suri. Now, this is another very interesting matchup, but what I did like is how Tomoka was the one who picked up the win. She picked up the win with the one shot, one kill Tomoka kick, and that sealed the deal for her to pick up the victory. Now, our last match of the Red Star block, we have Mafia Bella, Tekla, and Julia taking on Aphrodite, Utami Ishida, and Saya Kamitani. Now, this was a very good one because, as you know, Mafia Bella is yet to lose a match just yet. They only had one draw so far. But this time, as you know, Aphrodite did mention during their time that they're going to be the ones to walk out as the winners. They're determined because I remember Utami Ishida was determined to dethrone Meltier from their tag titles. But will be the ones to make it to the finals? We don't know. We'll just have to wait and see when we get there. But the way that match ended, it was Tekla with the leg roll clutch onto Utami Ishida to pick up the win. I have to say this is a major upset because Tekla has never pinned Utami Ishida. I think that sets a whole lot. So we'll see what goes on in the near future for her. Now our final match, our main event, is the Blue Goddess block. We got BMI 2000, Ruka and Natsuko Tora taking on the new eras of God's Eye, Mirai and Ami Sori. I thought this match was pretty good, but however, they got to be more careful with these guys with Natsuko Tora and Ruka because they like to bring out weapons. But luckily, it did not come into pass. But it was Mirai who picked up the win by applying the Mira Mare Shock onto Ruka, forcing her to tap out. But they did also determine that they're going to walk out as the winners because, as you know, they still haven't given up on the Goddesses Tag League, the Goddess Stardom Tag Team Champions. I think that's what they're looking for. But we'll see when that happens. They already faced it twice, 3 times actually, but we'll see where they're going to go. I believe right now let's end it right here and move on to, I believe, MLW. All right. MLW Fusion 156 on Thanksgiving. Now keep in mind this show was pre-taped. It opened up with the MLW Women's Featherweight Championship between Brittany Blake and Taya Valkyrie. Now the last time these two come across each other, Taya Valkyrie was speaking on behalf of the women's featherweight, but Brittany Blake showed up and attacked her from behind for out of nowhere. So I think that kind of sets the whole thing. But you can tell by this match that Brittany Blake is determined to win this match, determined to dethrone La Güera Loca, Taya Valkyrie. And I think that's why she did it. But As you know, Taya Valkyrie is one tough cookie. She does not know the meaning of give up until her body gives up on her. And of course, it did not happen until, of course, Taya Valkyrie applied like a submission type cross face type match in a maneuver into Brittany Blake in order to retain the title. So the obvious question now, does she retain the title? Who's next? There's a long list of women who would definitely want to have their chance of that title. Now, we do get an interview with EJ and Duca. Now, Duca, as you know, has witnessed the termination of the explosion of Dynasty, but however, it doesn't seem like he's interested in that. He's more interested of the MLW World Heavyweight Championship. That is what he's determined. He wants a shot. So we'll see about that. Now, Dragon Gate received a video message from Shun Skywalker from Dragon Gate. Now, he called out his shot. He called out Myron Reed, the young goat, and he determined to dethrone him for the MLW Middleweight Championship. Now, Myron Reed did say, bring them all out. So he's calling anybody. But I don't think he's ever faced a guy like Shun Skywalker. I think that's what says it all. But we'll see where they're going to go. And he did issue the challenge where you have to hear from Byron Reed what he says. Now, our main event is the MLW World Heavyweight Championship in a Falls Count Anywhere match. This match was nuts. It went from the ring, go outside, and then like maybe twice. And I think that kind of. But I was thinking that Duran was going to give him a helping hand. No, it did not. It was more like Richard Holiday was determined to get rid of Alex Hammerstone on his own. Like, tried to show him he's the proprietor and all this, but it did not do any good for him. But the only thing we do know is that Hammerstone's ribs were not 100% healed, but he's a fighting champion. He refuses to stay down regardless that they tell him that he has to. But it did not work one way or the other. But it took a torture rack to finish off the job for Hammerstone to win. But the moment he was trying to give his post match, he was interrupted by EJ and Duca. Now, Duca seems like he's determined to have a shot of him for the MLW World title. He decided to beat him up, and apparently he did. So, we don't know what's his condition with Hammerstone, but you can tell there's going to be hell to pay for what happened. But we still also have to deal another problem. We don't know who's been doing these recent attacks. This individual leaving a calling card. And I think that's something we need to find out sooner or later. So I think that's pretty much it right now. What we got with MLW. I think it's time for New Japan. Okay, we're continuing on with more on the Super Jr.Tag League with New Japan Pro Wrestling. Opened up, we have Chaos, Leo Rush, and Yo as a combined team taking on Kevin Knight and Kushida. Now, this was a pretty good match. I think it was very good. And however, I think this one failed the test. Now, Kushida and Kevin Knight were fully aware that they were about to get hit by the 3K, but they were able to avoid that. But it was the final hour by Leo Rush that sealed the deal for him to pick up the win for his team. Now, in this next match, I have to say, was one of the most funnest matches I've ever seen. El Lindaman and Alex Zane taking on Ryusuke Taguchi and Clark Connors. Now, the reason I say it was a fun match, now, whenever we see fun, we know who's going to be there, and that is Taguchi. Now, Taguchi has a tendency to pulling his pants down and try to get his underwear in the faces of his opponents. But that did not happen here whatsoever. You saw Alex Zane biting Taguchi's ass like he was having his last meal. Then he tried to spank him like he thinks he's a 5-year-old. But El Lindaman, he cannot tolerate him, what he was saying. I thought it was just too darn funny. But the one thing that was really interesting, Clark Connors brought a taco. Yeah, you heard me. He brought a taco, but it was for Alex Zane. Now, you guys know Alex Zane, how he loves to eat. And, of course, he has lifetime limited Taco Bell, from what you guys been hearing. I don't know how Clark Connors did it, But he brought that up, but it did not do any well for him one way or the other because he ended up on the wrong side of the taco driver, giving him and his team the win. I'm still in shock what just transpired, but it was just too darn funny. Now, our next match, we have Suzuki Goons, Doiki and Yoshinobu Kanemaru taking on the Flying Tigers, Tiger Mask, and Robbie Eagles. I thought this match was pretty fun. However, I think this one was definitely going to go fall in the favors of the Flying Tigers because Robbie Eagles has grown up a lot, but it was a roll up onto by Robbie to Kanemaru that picked up the victory for his team. And I thought it was pretty good. Now we got a bit of a Bullet Club showdown. We got the House of Torture, Sho and Dick Togo taking on what's their name? Chris Bay and Ace Austin. Now sooner or later when the ref was out, you know for a fact that's the cue for Evil and the rest of Evil and Yujiro to come out to give their helping teammate a hand. But it did not do any well for anybody because um, they took them out. But it was the fold by Ace Austin that picked up the win for his team, and I thought it was really fun as well. Now, our final match, we have LIJ's Titan and Bushi taking on Catch 22 members of United Empire, Francisco Akira and TJP. Now, these two teams, they have been trying to up each other every moment they get their hands on. Now, we do know they challenged for the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Tag Team titles. They came up short, but this could be the time where LIJ, Bushi, and Titan could actually win these tag titles. So they're one of those. They're on the list right now, from my understanding. So, but it was the El Mortal by Titan, but it was Bushi that picked up the win on Francesco Cara. So they most likely could be that one team that could dethrone them, but we'll see when that day happens. And I thought it was a pretty good event, but this one and the second match was the best one. So I think that's pretty much it right now. So let's move on with AEW Rampage. Okay, AEW Rampage opened up with the Ring of Honor World Tag Team titles between FTR, the current champions, and Top Flight. Pretty good match because, as you know, we know Top Flight. They are they're one of the most amazing tag teams, even in the younger generation. They have this agile moves and high spots. As we know, we've seen FTR. They have the bit of the more technical aspect, and I think that kind of sets it all. Like, who has the much better edge? Is it the new generation or is it the present generation? I think that tells it all. But it was, of course, the big rig by FTR onto Dante that picked up the win. However, in the process of the match, while FTR retained the titles, Dante Martin got injured. We don't know what's the extent of his injuries, but as soon as this match was over, once again, the As Boys show up, tried to get under the skin of FTR once again, but you know how that is. Now, Chris Jericho comes out. As you know, he's not too pleased after what happened. After winning his match against Tomohiro Ishii, he got slapped in the face by Claudio. As you know, Claudio tried to stop him from hurting Ian Riccaboni, who is no wrestler, but looks like that Claudio is going to get another opportunity for the Ring of Honor World Title. But however, he tells him that if Claudio loses this match, he has no other choice but to join the Jericho Appreciation Society, because, as you know, Jake Hager was trying to convince him, saying that he's better off with them, that he knows them, that he is better off being a sports entertainer. I think that's what he was trying to tell him, but we'll see what happens down the road for that. Now, Toni Storm, as you know, we had a great run. As you know, that now she is as her interim championship status is turned into, okay, now it's recognized. However, she is still a little disturbed with the fact is that Jamie Hayter is still blinded by the fact that Britt Baker gets involved in her life. So she knows that sooner or later that some things have to change, but it's not going to happen with her. But she will probably get her hands on Britt Baker for costing her the match. Because we do know there are those who are talking right now as we speak that Britt Baker will turn on Jamie Hayter, or Jamie Hayter will question her motives, or sort of like that. So that's two scenarios that could happen. Now, our next match, we have Darby Allin along with Sting taking on Anthony Henry along with JD Drake. I thought this was another good match. According to what Excalibur said, they have come across each other on various occasions. But you probably would have assumed sooner or later Henry would have figured out what he was going to do, but it took one moment of a coffin drop that allowed Darby to pick up the win, and I thought it was pretty good. Now, we do get an interview with Athena, as you know, with her recent new attitude has changed. Apparently, she's been waiting for someone like Mercedes Martinez to make her move. As you know, the Ring of Honor women's title will be defended. I wouldn't be for sure if that belt will be defended at Final Battle later on in December, so we'll pay attention to that. Our next match, we have Hikaru Shida versus Queen Aminata, but in the process of this match, Penelope Ford and the Buddy show up. Now, it's still unclear what it is, but I wouldn't be surprised that they want to get rid of Shida, knowing that, as you know, Shida is one of the top girls in AEW. But it was Shida with the katana that sealed the deal onto Queen Aminata. But as for Ford and Bunny, you can tell they're not impressed by that win, but they'll figure something out down the road. In our main event, it was the Butcher, the Blade, and Rouge, along with Jose and the Bunny, taking on Dark Order, Silver, Reynolds, and 10. Now, 10 was nowhere to be found, but Silver and Reynolds were getting themselves get mangled up in every corner, left and right. Referee did not see it. But in the moment where we thought we saw 10 coming, he turned his back on Dark Order, especially hurting little Brody Lee, -1. And of course, this is what Rush has been trying to say. They've been trying to tell him that Dark Order has held him back, that he is not reaching his full potential, and that he was being forced to wear a mask. That mask was given to him by the late Brody Lee. But right now, 10 really hurt a -1. I don't know what's going to happen, but sooner or later, Dark Order will get their revenge on 10 for their betrayal for what they did. But many fans were hoping that 10 would leave, but now they're saying that Dark Order is officially dead. We don't know for sure if that's the case or what Tony Khan has in store for the Dark Order just yet. So I think that's pretty much it right now. So let's move on to our final review, NXT Level Up. NXT Level Up opened up with Zion Quinn versus Tank Ledger. Now, this was a pretty good matchup for an opening because, as you know, it's more of a straight-up powerhouse type match as you speak. But I think many fans would have thought Tank Ledger was going to walk out as victor because he seems like he had everything under his control. But the moment he did lost control is when Zion Quinn applied a forearm right into his face. 1, 2, 3. He picks up the win. Now we get an interview by Amara Miller. Her match against Elektra Lopez. She's been asking for this match only to improve on herself. But does she have the capabilities against Elektra Lopez? Well, Elektra Lopez, as you know, has been on a different, fire since she came back. And I think that's going to set everything on a different pattern. But it was the electroshock by Elektra Lopez that picked up the win for her. Now our next match, Dante Chen versus Damon Kim, who we haven't seen for quite some time due to the fact that he got himself mangled up by Julius Creed and all this and that. But I have to say it was a pretty good match, very interesting stuff. But it was Damon Kemp with the pinfall onto Dante Chen that picked up the win. I thought it was very interesting, but nonetheless, we'll see what happens then. I think that's pretty much it. So I think it's time for some news updates. to our news updates. Our update right now, this one's coming from Fightful Select. It was told that Scorpio Sky, who's been out on injury, is set to return to AEW, but however, no creative plans have been initiated just yet when he'll be back. Now, if I was a betting man, I would say it would happen maybe at a precise moment. Now, could it be he could be next challenger for the AEW World Title? I don't know. Or will he go after Ethan Page for, doing his own thing, that sort of thing? I don't know. We still don't know, but I'm sure everybody has been excited to see him. So you may ask, what kind of injury? I think it was a knee injury. But however, I do know that on his social media, or should I say, his girlfriend's social media, Alex Gracia, aka the Pink Dream, has been posting photos of herself with him. Seems like he's doing okay. So basically, we're happy that he's going to be back, but it's still unclear what the creative plans are for him of yet. Now, Wrestling Revolver has announced for the upcoming event season's finale on the 3rd of December. Kenta was announced that he'll make his debut. However, no opponent has been announced. As this old saying is, ask and you shall deliver. It's going to be Kenta versus Speedball Mike Bailey. I think this is going to be one heck of a match. Now, I mentioned already, we already have 2 entrants for the Battle of Los Angeles by Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, or as we call it, PWG. Masha Slamovich has now been declared as the 3rd entrant, so I'm looking forward to that. Now, for our upcoming matches from 2 different events on GCW, first one is the one afternoon only. Jordan Oliver will face against Mance Warner, I think. And then, of course, we got for the America's Most Wanted that will be taking place on the 16th of December. We have Cardona versus Starboard Charlie. That's going to be a very interesting one. Then after that, our final update, Warrior Wrestling 26 will feature, of course, Eddie Kingston and Warhorse. That's going to be one killer match. So I think that's going to be about everything else. So I think it's time to call it a day. Well, I hope everybody enjoys this episode. We still got more on New Japan Pro Wrestling. I think we're heading to the World Tag League matches. Choco Pro will not be happening this week. I believe maybe because Masa Takanashi and Mei Suruga and several others are currently in Singapore doing a 2-day show. I don't know when they'll be back, but I'm looking forward to it. And as we speak, we have the Stardom showcase. I'm kind of excited for that one because it's going to be very interesting. If there's anything else, I'll put it up for the next episode. So I'll see you guys on the next DWZ time. Same DWZ channel. I must bid all of you adieu. So, goodbye. Mwah. And have a nice day. Bang.